You are listening to the Southwestern American Choral Directors Association Connections podcast, where we will interview choral directors, leaders, and movers and shakers within our region. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Wall. We hope you enjoy these conversations. Please like and subscribe this YouTube channel for future content. Hi, everyone. Happy to bring you another episode today. A couple of quick announcements. We're going to change the format of this podcast just a little bit after the final R&R chair interview that I have. I think I have one more coming up, and make it into shorter, digestible bits. Hopefully that's a little more respectful of your time, but we will continue to interview those that are going to be headlining for the 2026 Albuquerque conference for SWACDA, and also the guest conductors and so forth. So we'll be bringing them on, as well as leadership, to talk more about the upcoming conference in 2026 as that time draws closer. In the meantime, as this is being recorded, we hope to see you next week in Dallas for ACDA National Conference. For now, I wanted to bring you an episode where I interview Rayvon T.J. Moore. He is a conductor, educator, and baritone who has been lauded for his energetic yet sensitive conducting and his rich baritone voice. Moore serves as assistant professor of music and director of choral studies at Friends University in Kansas, and as the artistic director and conductor of the Wichita Chamber Chorale. At Friends, he conducts the internationally renowned Singing Quakers, in addition to teaching courses in conducting, choral methods, and applied voice. And under his leadership, the Singing Quakers have performed at the Kansas Music Educators Association, KMEA. And he has toured domestically and internationally to Spain and Portugal. I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation with Rayvon T.J. Moore. Of course, there's always a lot more to his bio down in the description of the video. I think what you'll find fun to learn about him is that you'll hear his voice on singing backup for Rolling Stones, Barry Manilow, Patty Austin, Andrea Bocelli, and he can be heard on the album John Williams and Steven Spielberg, The Ultimate Collection, recorded with Sony Classical. So that's pretty cool. He also has degrees, a Bachelor of Arts in Choral Music from the University of Southern California, a Master of Music in Choral Conducting from Cal State Fullerton, and a DMA degree in conducting from Eastman. So enjoy this conversation with Rayvon T.J. Moore. All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. I'm here with Dr. Moore. Dr. Rayvon T.J. Moore, can you tell us, please, about your backstory and your musical upbringing?
Wow. Okay. Hi, Jeff. I started out singing in the church choir as a little kid. Grew up in church, and my family, everybody sings. They're also musicians, and so I grew up around music my whole life. And I started, so I grew up singing in church, and then I didn't know that I wanted to be an educator until my freshman year in high school. And so I think for many of us, it usually takes that educator that was the one that inspired us. And then you had that feeling, you had that, that teacher made you feel a certain way. And then you thought, man, I think I want to do this. So for me, it was Joel Pressman at Beverly Hills High School that did it for me. And I've just been doing it ever since. I've always known that I wanted to be a music educator ever since then, and to be a conductor, and I've never looked back. And it's been just an immense joy. Yeah.
That's awesome. Can you kind of tell us, dig in a little deeper about your education, and we'll go into some of this on the intro, because it's in your bio, and I'll let people read that. But tell us about your experiences, going through undergrad, grad, first jobs, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, after graduating high school, I went to Pasadena City College for a year, and I studied with Don Brenniger there, who is still my guru when it comes to conducting. And so I went to PCC for a year, and then I transferred to USC to study with Joe Michael Scheibe for my undergrad. And so I did my BA in choral music, and I thought that my trajectory was to go back to my alma mater and take over after my mentor, Joel Pressman. That was my dream. I just wanted to do what he did. And then I decided, okay, maybe I'll go on to grad school because, master's degree, I wanted to know more. And just thinking, uh, just logically, I was like, you also get paid more, if you're going to go and teach K through 12. And I was like, okay, let's get a master's degree too while you're at it. And I went to Cal State Fullerton to study with Rob Eistad and Chris Peterson. And after I went to a rehearsal, this was in my first semester. I went to a rehearsal with Rob Eistad to Pacific Chorale, and he was the associate conductor of Pacific Chorale at the time, and his mentor, John Alexander, was the conductor, and it was his last season, I believe. Um, and he was conducting Vaughan Williams' A Sea Symphony. And we're sitting out in Segerstrom Concert Hall, and I'm sitting next to Rob, and I'm looking at the score, and I was like, I changed my mind. I want to do that. I mean, for me, it was about seeing the thing, you know? And Rob Eistad was just a master at gesture and Baroque music, and he exposed me to Bach. And so then I got the bug with Bach, and so now I was just like a Bach fanatic, and so I did that. And then after Cal State Fullerton, I ended up going to the Eastman School of Music and getting my doctorate in conducting and studying with Bill Weiner, who also is a master at Baroque music and all sorts of music, really. And so after that, I went and I did a year interim at Colgate University in Hamilton, New York, and then I started here at Friends University in this fall of 2020. So during COVID. So talk about starting a new job during COVID, Jeff. Yeah, that was fun. And I've been here ever since. And so, yeah, and I currently also am the artistic director of the Wichita Chamber Chorale. I also started in 2020. And I'm also a church musician at Chapel Hill United Methodist Church. So I stay pretty busy, Jeff.
Yeah, for sure. Looks like you've
Yeah,
brought us up to speed on your backstory, upbringing, and all that stuff. And one of the things that kind of stood out to me, what you said, was doing what our mentors were doing. That's uh, I think we all have kind of similar experiences. Myself included. I started with my high school director, middle school, and then high school director. Like, oh, I kind of want to do that.
right.
And then got into my undergrad experience. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I might want to do that.
Might want to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it changes, you get that, and it may not, but for us it did, and it just goes to show the impact that certain individuals can have on people, or even just the power of music itself, and
Mhm.
how in that moment it touched us, and it touched us in such a profound way that you felt, boy, if I see it, I feel as though that maybe I could do that too. And so that has really been my driving force. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it was performance travel, and making great sounds and having great experiences in great halls. Um, we were invited. This was back when I was at Texas Tech University, and we were invited to come for a celebration of like Weston Noble
Hmm.
at Ellis Tully Hall in New York, and it was just one of those standout moments. It was the first time I had really ever been out of Texas much, so
Oh
it's
yeah.
like, wait a minute, if I can travel, make great music, have great experiences with friends that I love around me, and make money,
Yeah.
that's kind of a no-brainer.
You're like, sign me up. I'll do it. I'll do it.
Right, right. Uh, but yeah, it just occurred to me that I didn't. We kind of jumped right in. I didn't officially welcome you to the pod, so I apologize about that. But
That's
you're gonna
okay.
you're gonna mention your mentors probably a little bit later too. So hold that in your brain as we get
Okay.
down further in some of these questions. But now go into a little bit about your role with us for Southwestern ACDA and what you're going to be doing for us. What you're most excited about for that.
Okay. So I currently serve as the R&R chair for four-year college and universities. And I love that because I love literature. Right? I mean, repertoire selection, that's one of the hardest things that we have to do as choral music educators. It's one of the biggest jobs that we get to do. And I love the process of programming. And so I'm just excited to hopefully just expose people to some pieces that might be new to them, It may not necessarily be written, that year. It might be just something that, hey, I just discovered something that I think is really cool. And maybe folks know about it, but if I could be a vessel or someone to just say, hey, let me introduce you to this piece, then I'm happy to do that. So as much as I try to be a resource for other people, there are other people that are resources for me that I look to for their brilliant programming and just how they put things together. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
Awesome. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you in Dallas, and hopefully this pod will come out a little bit before that, so they feel a little bit less apprehensive. That's the whole purpose of these interviews, is so that they can get to know you guys as R&R chairs,
Absolutely.
feel less apprehensive about coming up to you and asking questions about repertoire resources, that kind of thing. So we're really glad to have you on the board for that purpose. So now we're getting into some questions that some have something to do with choral music, some have nothing to do with choral music.
Yeah.
This doesn't necessarily have to be a choral piece, but what's a piece of music that you think best embodies your personality?
Hold, wait, I'm gonna look. I want to say the correct title, but I want to look this up. I'm a big Earth, Wind, and Fire fan.
Oh, okay.
That is one of my favorite bands, and there's actually a piece or a song of theirs that I didn't know, and it had just like played on Spotify or something, and maybe like a couple of months ago, and I thought, where's that been? Oh, it's called Love Music. I thought it was going to be I Love Music, but it's called Love Music by Earth, Wind, and Fire. It's funky, and it just says, I love all kind of music, funky kind of music. I love music, and so yeah, that embodies me for sure. Yeah.
It's awesome. Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah.
Nice choice. Nice choice.
Can't go wrong.
Right. Okay, so let's here's another hard one. What's your desert island choral piece? Only one that you could have with you for a little while until you're saved.
That has changed over time. And I think it changes based off of the piece that I'm currently working on, right? And so for me, I've revisited, I've never conducted it, but I've sung it once, but Choose Something Like a Star, Randall Thompson. That, when I tell you that even just in rehearsals, I find moments where it brings me to tears, just that the text and how Randall Thompson sets it, the rising motive in the piano where you can just see the stars just gazing upward, and it's very spiritual for me, that text, even though it's really secular text, but yet is sacred in nature depending upon how you look at it. So yeah, I love that piece.
That's awesome. I think there was a question that I'm rarely on social media these days, but I was scrolling through for something and I can't remember who was asking the question. Gosh, I wish I could name them on the pod, but maybe it was Aaron Kolwitz, Dr. Kolwitz from Michigan. But
Yeah,
anyway, asking about tempo for that piece. What's your preferred tempo? Because the marking, I think is 60.
it's at
Um,
60.
yeah, it's kind of slow for what's your preferred tempo for that piece? A little faster or about that tempo or
No, I have it about there.
do you? Okay, great.
Yeah. I now the Sopranos don't enjoy it. I can tell you,
Right. That was the debate. Yeah.
yeah, they don't. And so all of my Sopranos, I say, Doc, I love this piece, but I don't, I like to listen to it. I don't enjoy singing.
Right.
And I tell them, but they do such a great job. Where I mean, it's just you need the purity of tone, you need sins of vibrato on that long sustained D. I mean, you just do. And so, but they do it so well. Um, but yeah, but I think that also is a piece that has a sense of give and take. It's
Mhm.
bravado, and so there are moments where I kind of do push it just a little bit, just to give them some life. So I try to respond though to what I'm hearing. And if it seems like they're dying on the vine, Jeff, I help them. And I'm like, okay, time to go.
Yeah, understood. Understood. Yeah, sorry, that just came to mind. And sorry if I misattributed that post, but that's
No, good.
just what I was thinking of. Okay, so do you have a particular philosophy of programming, and it can be for your own choirs, for honor choirs, that you're clinicking, or something like that? How do you approach programming?
For me, I always try to, if I can, I try to have a message or some kind of a theme or something that I want not only the performers to leave away with, but also the audience members. Sometimes I might have it beforehand, before I've even selected a piece of repertoire. Sometimes it comes after you've already selected the repertoire and you just say, my goodness, what do I have here? And you try to make something out of it. But some kind of a message, and then also diversity in the repertoire, and not just diversity as far as the composers that are selected, but diversity in tempos, diversity in styles, because I don't like to be bored, Jeff, and I don't want my performers to be bored. I don't want the audience to be bored. I want them, too much of one thing isn't good. So my philosophy on programming is, let's have a variety within it, and let's not make it all difficult either. Put some pieces in there that will cause the musicians to work a little bit. It might be just a little bit beyond their reach, but they'll work hard. But then put something that they can just sing right off the page and just have a positive moment just in real time. So yeah, that's pretty much my way of how I go about programming. Sometimes it's centered around one piece. I might find a piece and then say, okay, let me see some other pieces that have similar themes. And then other times it might be just a collection of a variety.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was and I love your answers there. That's some of them are common answers for other guests that we've had, but this has come up a couple of times. What and maybe you talked about this and I just missed it, but do you find it more difficult to have a set of repertoire that you're working on and then glean a theme from that, or try to fit repertoire within a theme that you've selected?
I tend to go the route of gleaning a theme from the repertoire that I've already selected. And then, but that's the first step. So my process for programming is really a multi-step kind of a process, because I start very large where there's clearly too many pieces in here. You start that and then you start to weed out and you're like, okay, I'll save that for next year, and those kinds of things. Or there's too much slow, I need to replace some of that there, or everything is too fast and it's too rhythmic. There's no opportunity to just reflect and just have a moment to pause. So I start with too much, and then I wish I could say that then I weed out and then I'm left with just the right amount, but then sometimes I still feel like I overprogram sometimes. It's a process, right? It's a learning process, but I think that is typically how I do it. And when people ask me what is their process or where do they start when it comes to programming, like they say the repertoire is so vast, I don't know where to begin. I've heard that many times. I say, well, what do you like? I start with, what do I like? And then, great, what can my singers do? What, is it within their range? Is it within their level of musicianship? Those kinds of questions. But I have a Word doc that I keep of all the pieces that I love, that I've either sung or I've come to a conference, ACDA conference or anything, and I've made a star in a program and said, this is great, love this. And then it's from that I go back to the list and say, okay, I've done that one. Oh, haven't done that. And then you try to pair it with something else. So that's really where I start.
Yeah, I love that, and I love your answer about starring programs at at conferences and concerts. I have a filing cabinet next to me here with, I think, two or three drawers full of physical programs, and things are going, of course, more to digital now. So that if that's one thing we can pass along, maybe to an emerging choral leader, which we'll talk about here in just a minute, it's keep your programs, whether it be in electronic form or whatever, and go back to
Okay.
those programs and dig in and star them, and make notes in the margins, and all that stuff. So
That's right.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's
I
great.
mean, I even have some programs, already set, and then I'm just waiting for the right time or
Absolutely. Yeah, I have that too. Hmm.
yeah. So if people are like, hey, what's our program next year? it might be one from there, or it might not be. It might be, I might get new inspiration. But yeah, I think that's another way to just, if other ideas come, great, then maybe you're not in, I feel like we should always be programming, just like we're always recruiting. I could be at Target, and if I hear someone singing and I'm like, are you in school right now?
Yeah, right.
And always recruiting and always programming.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest parts of our job too.
It's true.
Yeah. Okay, what would a typical rehearsal look like under your direction? So, say we come into your friend's university Singing Quakers rehearsal. What are we going to see first off?
Okay, so I always start off with really a glissando down on the piano. That just helps to stop the conversation because everyone is just excited. So I always come in and I greet my students. We have a conversation, then glissando on the piano, and then we start with warm-ups. I probably only spend maybe about 5 minutes doing warm-ups. I definitely, now if it needs to be longer, depending upon the literature, what we're doing, then it is, but I don't spend a lot of time with warm-ups just because we usually have a lot of repertoire and then I just get right to it. But my rehearsals, they move pretty quickly. And there's always some humor. That's just who I am. And I think that it's a-okay. I used to think maybe as a young person, that I mean, I'm young now. What am I talking about? But when I was younger, right, that you really had to be serious all the time because you're the professor and all of these other things. But boy, does it humanize you a bit if you are just yourself in whatever form that is. And I have the respect of my students, but I am me. So there's always humor. We laugh at each other when we, make mistakes. I make mistakes or something, and it's always a good time. But yeah, I definitely move my rehearsals. My pacing of rehearsals is something that I learned while at USC, and so I attribute that to Joe Michael Scheibe, and so I have to give credit to him for that because that man moves very fast.
That's awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there are some takeaways there for any emerging choral leader, which that's the next question is pointers for emerging choral leaders. So I'll buy you some time here as you think of those pointers or hacks that you might think of for an emerging choral leader. But what you said there really resonates, I think, with timing and pacing, getting right to it, orienting the ensemble. I liked your idea of the gliss on the piano initially, just to stop the chatter, get everybody focused on the task of the day, and then I'm similar. I don't spend a whole lot of time on warm ups, a little bit, but it's kind of formulaic in that I have different warm ups. I do, of course, but it's always voice building in some way, shape, or form with range extension because I have young voices.
Right.
And then some sort of tuning exercise, some sort of mental exercise, sight reading, and then right to it. So yeah, I think you've given lots of tips there. What's something else maybe for an emerging choral leader you could add?
I would say lean on your mentors and lean on your colleagues and build connections with people, and don't be afraid to ask questions. I think sometimes you think that, oh well, I'm starting out and I feel like now that I've reached whatever level that you've maybe always wanted to be as far as in your career or something, or you've gotten the job, I feel like I should know, so I'm not going to ask. No, ask. I'm always asking questions. I call people who are smarter than I am, all the time. But then it's funny because then people will think that I am that for them. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but it's that feeling of, and I think maybe that gets into imposter syndrome a little bit, right? Or something of just that feeling of, do I really know what's going on? Because you feel like you're always learning. And I guess that would be the other thing, is to be curious. That word curiosity, Jeff, for me is something I was just telling a student of mine that's considering changing majors and becoming a music educator. And, because they've seen maybe some real and some bad experiences of education where they feel like I don't want to be stuck, as an educator or something. I'm like, why do you keep saying stuck? What do you mean by that? But that's because that's what they've seen, some frustrations maybe of teachers that they've had. I said, well, I've also seen some teachers that absolutely love what they do. Like this is their calling. I was like, you're talking to one, right? That just loves what they do. But getting to the point when I talk to them about whether or not they should do this and change their major to be music educator. One, they're a great musician and they're a lover of people. But I also said, you are a curious individual, and that will serve you well as an educator. That will serve you well as a conductor. And so that would be my another piece of advice for emerging choral directors is to stay curious, because I think that also helps your artistry. Right? If you're not curious, you will always do what's on the page and nothing more. And for some people, that might be fine. But the performances that I remember are not the performances where the tone was great and they sang the right rhythms and the right notes. That's lovely. And I love that. And believe me, I strive for that. My students will tell you, I really do. But if there is no artistry, no heights of phrases and no feeling and no passion, then why do it? So, but you can only do that if you're curious as to maybe you have to do things that aren't on the page in order to just bring it to life. So that would be another tidbit.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah. And I tell my choirs often, much is forgiven for the choir that actually performs.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so it's kind of along the same lines, I think, of what you're saying there. Bring the music to life, and there may be, and similar to you, I've heard performances that have left me feeling wanting, and it was a perfect performance otherwise,
Yes.
sounded
Absolutely.
perfect, but I left not feeling the spirit and the soul and the
Yeah.
humanity in it. And then there are other performances that maybe were not as a little rougher around the edges or not clean, but they actually performed, and those are the performances that stay with you forever.
Absolutely.
um
Yes.
I want to go back real quick because you said something about imposter syndrome and being yourself in rehearsal. you know uh, if I may, just adding that to your comment about being yourself, be true to your ensemble and say, look, I'm having a little bit of insecurity about this. I want to be forthright with you. But being yourself, that includes, they say sarcasm has no place in the classroom. I couldn't disagree more because I can't teach without sarcasm myself.
Oh, yeah, I definitely have it, Jeff. So I'm right there.
Right. And my students know that, to expect that I'm going to make fun of them a little bit. That means I like them.
Yeah, that's right.
So share your shortcomings with your ensemble, because they know,
Yeah.
when you're struggling with something. So
Yeah. I mean, this was, I'm thinking back on a few years ago, I was doing Richard Nance, Batter My Heart, Three-Person God. And for some reason, I don't know why, it's like I just kept having a mental block to start that piece. Every time we got to that piece, it's like I didn't know what was the gesture to just get them to come in together. And I've never had a mental block like that with any other piece. But they always loved to see me struggle. It because it goes to show, and I would always tell them, and then I would shake my head. I'm like, okay, do it again, and they're like, Doc, it's like you with that piece. I would almost double prep or something. I'm like, what am I doing? I couldn't get it. So yeah, and there are times in rehearsal, Jeff, where if we're going over something, maybe the second time, I'm very honest. I'm like, oh, do that again. That's me. Like, do it for me. Like, because I messed up something. But then I will also tell them when it's you. And I'm like, that's you. And then they laugh when I do that, because then they know, okay, I'm gonna call it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll always say we won't point any fingers, but I'll be pointing right at them.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, great advice. All right, so what advice do you think you would give to your 16-year-old self with all the knowledge and wisdom that you have now?
I would say to enjoy where you are in that moment. I was such a planner, and I still am. Jeff, like always thinking about the future. And I remember seeing online somewhere where someone, it was like a little post-it note, and it's like, hey, take account of this. The thing that you said that you wanted to do or to have 5 years ago, you have that thing now. It was something like that. And then I was like, oh my goodness, that's true. But I never really celebrated that or even acknowledged that because I was too focused on, okay, well, what's the next thing? You know, and so I wish that I, it's not that say that I didn't have fun. I really did. I had fun at every stage of my studies and things like that. But I wish that I just lived in every single moment just a little bit more instead of obsessing about what am I gonna do and what's the next step for me to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think being a planner, that we're choir directors, we're ensemble directors. That's part of who we are, and it's built in. Yeah,
Right.
just to pause for a moment, look around, take stock of where you are and who's around you, and enjoy the moment. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so flipping that around a little bit, what do you think your 90-year-old self? What advice would you give yourself now, where you are?
That it's okay if your goals change.
Oh, that's
Um,
great. That's great.
yeah, it's okay if your goals change, and it's not necessarily settling. It's not saying that, oh, well, what you have is not enough, so thus I need more, and so thus my goal is going to change. It is okay for your goals to change because where you are presently, it might be um, fulfilling, whether it is with people or with a job or with whatever it is, and I think when I think about the students that I have and the connections and environment that I have with colleagues and things like that, those are so precious to me. And I never thought that I would be one of those people, Jeff. That it's not, I've always been a people person, right? I think if you're going to do this, you you have to have love of music and people. And I think, but I never thought that that would actually be weighted so much more to me, beyond that. It's just like, wow, even though I wanted to be the Mr. Pressman in somebody else's life, I the love of people, so it's okay that if your goals change and yeah, celebrate that. You know?
Yeah, that's an awesome answer.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, and the people that have listened to this on a consistent basis know that I apologize to every guest about this question because it's just the nature of my, juvenile brain, and how it works. But I picture like a WWE style wrestling match with like four-person tag team of choral directors. Who are the other three choral directors you'd like in your corner?
Living.
It can be living or deceased.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like hypothetical, and can
I
be in
know,
clinic or session. Whose knowledge are you going to draw upon there?
that's so mean.
I know. I'm sorry.
um so I am still such a Robert Shaw fan and disciple, even though it was long before my time. But when you watch some of his master classes, I mean, just the music just literally just poured from the man, just and so such a technician and knowing how to work with that many voices at one time. I mean, it's doing masterworks. I mean, that's still just a great love of mine. And so someone who did it so well, um, and got the best out as much as he could from each singer, um, that I admired. And so he would definitely have to be one. Um, Another one would have to be my good friend Jen St. because I love her. You know her well, Jeff. I know she's done one of these, and I'm glad that we get to serve together for SWACDA. But I just find her brilliant and so infectious, and she really just knows how to just get folks just alongside her and to just pull those students along and to be great artists and to be engaging. And so I really value her her intellect and passion for the arts. Man, I love all my mentors, so I can't even select any of them because if I could, I would take all of them because I took all of that was good from them, Jeff. I tell people all the good stuff is them, all the other stuff is probably me, you
Yeah,
know?
I get that. Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, it would probably be those folks.
Yeah, we always have to apologize, of course, for any unintentional omission. We know that we're
Yeah,
thinking of you, right?
yeah, I know. But everyone is just so I really do try to, I mean, I love what Alan Hightower is doing at UNT. You know, I love, gosh, I feel like I'm rambling, but I really do. And when it comes to programming, which I mean, we've been talking about that, somebody who I've always admired and I've never met in person. And I've always just, and I hope I get an opportunity to just tell him, Eric Nelson of Atlanta Master Chorale and Emory University is, I love his programming. Absolutely love his programming. You know, when I think of programming, I think about that man. And I've never met him before. And so would be nice to just tell him that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. I've seen many of his programs, both with Atlanta Master Chorale and Emory. Um, yeah, and I can't disagree with that at all. That's awesome. What do you do to relax and fight burnout? Burnout is a common topic among educators right now. What do you do to kind of detach and get your mind refocused?
Hmm. Um, yeah, burnout is real, Jeff. It really is, especially when you love what you do. You know, I think I start my choral methods class talking about, I say, find a job that you love and you never work a day in your life. And I was like, that's baloney. I was like, find a job that you love and you'll work harder. And you will be tired.
It's so
Um,
true. It's so true.
it's so true. It's so true. Um, so I mean, things that I do, I used to do a lot of reading, and I have to say I don't do nearly as much reading as I used to. And my idea of just unplugging and relaxing is watching Netflix. Like I love film. I love movies, because I like to escape. I think that's also why people like to read. It's just the idea of I'm going to get lost into this storyline, and then I'm not going to think about what concerts do I have coming up or all these other things. So that's my recharge moment. Another hobby or I would say a hobby that I have is playing pickleball. That's a new one for me. When I moved to Wichita, I knew nothing about that. I was like, pickleball, what is this made up sport? I don't, but I'm kind of addicted. So I do love playing pickleball. Yeah,
Yeah, you're not the only one. That's a common surge of popularity in that
oh
sport for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, we even have a Singing Quaker pickleball league that I play with my students.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. That's our moment to bond, or one of the ways that we bond. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Who is another choral musician you'd like to lift up that maybe doesn't get the attention you think they deserve?
Oh, you know what? Yes, I can tell you one. And I've gotten to know him because we both work here in Kansas. But Lawrence Abernathy, who's at Washburn University, is doing great work. Absolutely. He has turned that program around, and he's a brilliant conductor and a great musician. Yeah,
Great.
Lawrence,
Yeah,
great.
and I selfishly asked this question and also the tag team question because if it's somebody that I haven't, you know, had in my sphere of influence, I want to, you know, do a deeper dive on them and kind of get to know them, hopefully connect and try to
Yeah,
find their work and see what they're up to and see if I can learn from them too. So yeah, thank you
absolutely.
for thank you. Okay, so now we're going to get into what I call the Accelerando Round. It's kind of quick fire questions, shoot
Okay,
from the hip. You don't have to think too hard about these. Most of them nothing to do with choral music, but just to kind of get to know you a little bit better. So if you're game,
okay.
to do this, we'll get started. Here we go. What's the worst job you ever had outside of choral music?
Man, I've always had a job where I was teaching, actually. That's the honest truth. I've never
Okay,
done anything else.
that's a lucky man. Okay, great,
Yeah, I know.
awesome. Okay, what's your guilty pleasure bad food to eat?
Um, it's only bad because I overdo it. But butter pecan ice cream, I just can't stop eating that usually. So I try not to keep it in the house. But yeah, I do love ice cream.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. It's great. Yeah, it's everything in moderation, right?
Yeah.
Except when it's something you love that much, it's hard to moderate that. Okay, if you had to do any other job besides being a musician of some kind, what might that be?
Okay. There's actually two. I would either be a judge or I'm really fascinated with the brain, and I probably would have tried to go into like neuroscience. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of neuroscience and well psychology too into our regular everyday job too. So trying to
Yeah.
understand those things. That's great. What's a movie or TV show that you think everyone should watch at least once? Being kind of a cinephile and a Netflix watcher, what do you think people need to watch at least once?
Wow. Ozark.
Oh yeah, great
Yeah.
series. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that series.
A little dark at times, but yeah,
It's a little dark, but that just gives you a little taste of what I like to watch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I'm
such a
right there
good
with you.
show. Yeah, it's a good series.
Absolutely. What's the scariest moment of your life? Or you could choose that, or what is your biggest phobia?
Wow. Um, Scariest moment. Phobia. Oh, okay. Phobia. I have that one of like little tiny holes, whatever that one's called, like a collection of holes that it makes my flesh crawl. That there's a word for that, but literally everyone in my
Maybe I
family
don't understand. Holes in what?
just in anything, like, oh my goodness, what is that called? It's like the fear of like too many holes, like collection of holes or something.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard that
Yeah,
one. So I don't
yeah,
know that one.
all of my everyone in my family has that one too, and I was like, what is this, genetic?
Okay, great. I'll have to look that up and see what that's officially
Oh,
called.
it's called trypophobia is what it's called.
Trypophobia. Okay,
Yeah, so look that up. Oh,
trypophobia.
yeah,
Makes your
yeah.
skin crawl just to think about it.
Yeah,
Okay,
it just showed some photo. It just, I saw some photos. Can do it.
gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. What's something you spend way too much money on?
Um, Probably music and resources. Like my library is filled with books, and scores. Like I'm always buying something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. That's fair. What's a secret talent that most people might be surprised to learn about you?
Hmm. Well, I guess this is a talent or something, but baking, like I'm actually a pretty good baker. Yeah.
That's a great talent. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to have some of your confections at some point. That's great.
Okay, cool. We'll try to make that happen, Jeff.
Awesome. What is the oldest thing in your fridge?
Probably jam. Yeah,
Right.
I'm
What
pretty
what
sure
flavor of jam do you
strawberry
think of?
jam. Strawberry.
Strawberry jam. You're a strawberry
Oh,
jam person. That's great.
oh yeah.
Yeah, it's either grape or strawberry for most folks. So it's great. Um, if you could have any superpower, what might that be?
Ooh, um, to be invisible, that would be kind of cool.
Okay,
Being
what would you utilize that power for? For good, right?
yeah, well, yes, absolutely for good. But I mean, when you think about like all the things that we'd like to do, like seeing shows and all these other things, it'd be great to just be able to just kind of or sit in on like on somebody's rehearsal, and let's say they're having a closed rehearsal and they're like, no one can come in, but it's like I could be there. I
Yeah,
could just kind of soak up just some of that good knowledge and just be in the space where it happens, the room where it happens. Yeah, I would love that.
that's great. That's great. Last question here for the Accelerando Round. If you could have any message on a billboard for thousands of people to see, short phrase, one word, anything like that, what would it say?
Love people. That's what it would say. Yeah,
That's a great one. Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Couldn't agree more. All right, congratulations. You've achieved Tempo Presto. Uh, and that's the Accelerando Round. Yeah, sorry, I'm
Great.
a little corny. Um,
Hope so.
all right, so what's your goals for, you can take it for this academic year, the rest of this academic year, or for the season or the upcoming season? What are your goals? What are you most looking forward to personally?
Hmm. Um, Really, my goals are to bring back some of the, I would say, older music, that I think that we've kind of gotten away from just a bit, just in general. And I think when I was doing my doctoral studies at Eastman, I mean, Bill Weiner, we did a lot of Schutz and Shine and Bach and Brahms and I mean, Palestrina, I mean, you name it, and loved that music. But I think because had done it for 3 years, I didn't program it that much when I got out and I started, and I've started to introduce those pieces back into my own conducting and introduce it to my students, and that's been exciting. I mean, this has been all of my students, this is their first time singing Bach, and we just we're working through Lobet den Herrn, and I'm doing Jesu meine Freude with Wichita Chamber Chorale this season. And so it's just, I'm excited to get back to that music that I love and I've always loved, because I honestly am a big believer that if you don't use it, you'll lose it. Not only just in the profession, but in your own skills. Like there's an art to doing that music, and so I'm just like, oh my goodness, I got to get my mojo back. I've got to get my, artistry back for those kinds of things. And so I'm really excited about that, just to do more of that literature.
Yeah, I feel that too. I've been kind of more of an esoteric, kind of on the fringe programmer in the last few years, and I love that. But I realized that my students need, and my community members need, a steady diet of the choral giants that have come before too. So, last
Yeah.
semester we did Brahms, and we're working on a Schütz right now too. So, completely
Love
agree
it.
with you there. Yeah, and they were somewhat maybe in quotations esoteric for their time period, and that's kind of what we need to bring to the fore. So, yeah, great
Amen,
answer.
brother. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so this has been a great conversation. Thanks for joining me. And where can people go to learn more about you and your work? It can be social media, it can be website, email.
Yes. Well, folks can follow me at maestro_RTJM on Instagram or my website, rayvontjmore.com. And yeah, let's connect. I mean, reach out, send me an email at rayvon_more@friends.edu. Happy to help any and all people, or just connect just to say hi. And hopefully I get to meet a lot of folks in Dallas. I'm so excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, thanks again for your time and thanks for joining us.
Jeff, I appreciate you. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Likewise.